The Zodiac Killer is one of the most chilling unsolved cases in American history. But he did not just kill, he performed. In December 1968, a young couple parked near Vallejo, California. Shots rang out in the dark. Two teenagers were left dying on the ground. Police believed it was a single, tragic crime. They had no idea it was only the beginning. Months later, another couple was attacked. Then another. The pattern was clear. Lovers' lanes, remote roads, nighttime. He used guns at first, then knives. Up close, personal. But what truly set him apart were the letters. Local newspapers received envelopes filled with strange symbols. The writer called himself Zodiac. He demanded front-page attention. If they refused, he warned he would kill again. One cipher had 408 characters. Another had 340. He claimed his name was hidden inside. People across the country tried to crack the code. Some parts were solved years later. Some still remain a mystery. The Zodiac loved control. He loved fear. He loved watching the public panic. He mocked police in his letters. He described details only the killer could know. In one case, he mailed a piece of a victim's bloody shirt to prove he was real. Investigators worked around the clock. Sketches were released. Suspects were questioned. Tips flooded in, but nothing led to an arrest. In October 1969, a taxi driver was shot in San Francisco. Witnesses saw a man walk calmly away. Another letter soon followed. The Zodiac claimed that murder too. Then, just as suddenly as he appeared, he went silent. After 1974, no more confirmed letters. No more confirmed killings. Just silence. 5 victims were officially linked to him. He claimed dozens more. Over 50 years later, the case is still open. New theories rise and fall. Names come and go. But the Zodiac Killer was never caught. And the man who turned murder into a nationwide remains one of America's darkest shadows. John Wayne Gacy seemed like the kind of man you would trust. He owned a business. He had friends. He even entertained children as a clown. But behind that mask was a killer hiding in plain sight. Born in 1942, Gacy grew up in Chicago with a violent father. He was beaten often, told he was worthless. He learned early how to hide his pain. As an adult, he built a strong public image. He ran a successful construction company. He hired young men and teenagers. He attended local events. He dressed up as Pogo the Clown for parades and parties. People saw a friendly neighbor. They never saw the monster. In the early 1970s, young men began disappearing around Chicago. Many were last seen with Gacy. He offered them work, quick cash, a chance to prove themselves. When they entered his house, the doors closed. Gacy would handcuff them, saying it was a magic trick. Once restrained, they could not escape. He assaulted them. Then he strangled them slowly with rope or cloth. He buried most of the bodies under his home, in the crawl space, packed into the dirt, hidden beneath his own floor. When there was no more room, he threw victims into the Des Plaines River. Neighbors noticed a strange smell. Gacy always had an excuse. Bad pipes, rotten trash. For years, police had no proof. Gacy stayed calm, charming, confident. He loved control. He loved feeling powerful. He believed he was smarter than everyone else. In December 1978, a 15-year-old boy named Robert Piest vanished after meeting Gacy about a job. This time, police pushed harder. They searched the house. They found suspicious items, and the smell was impossible to ignore. When officers opened the crawlspace, they uncovered body after body. The truth was worse than anyone imagined. Gacy was arrested and later confessed to 33 murders. The country was stunned. A man who made children laugh had been hiding death beneath his home. In 1994, John Wayne Gacy was executed by lethal injection. The clown costume was gone, but the horror he left behind still echoes across America. Andre Chikatilo looked ordinary, thin, quiet, soft-spoken. No one would guess what he was hiding, but he became one of the most feared serial killers in Soviet history. Born in 1936 in Ukraine, he grew up during war and famine. Food was scarce. Life was hard. He was bullied at school and often felt ashamed and angry. He struggled to connect with others. As an adult, he tried to live a normal life. He married. He had 2 children. He worked as a teacher, then later in an office job. On the outside, he was just another citizen. On the inside, he was losing control. In 1978, a 9-year-old girl was found murdered. She had been stabbed many times. Police searched for answers but found none. Over the next 12 years, the killings continued. Boys, girls, young women. Most were attacked near train stations or bus stops. Chikatilo often offered help or friendly conversation. He seemed safe, calm, normal. He would lead victims into nearby woods. Then the violence began. He stabbed them over and over. The attacks were cruel and chaotic. At that time, Soviet leaders did not believe serial killers existed in their country. Police were unprepared. They chased the wrong suspects. One innocent man was even executed. But the murders kept happening. Chikatilo traveled by train across Russia and Ukraine. He blended into crowds. He left little physical evidence. For years, he escaped capture. He later said killing made him feel powerful, in control, alive. In 1990, police started watching train stations more closely. An officer noticed Chikatilo acting nervous and suspicious. He was detained. At first, there was not enough proof to charge him, but investigators kept digging. Forensic tests connected him to several crime scenes. Finally, he confessed. The number stunned the public. He admitted to 53 murders. His trial in 1992 was intense and emotional. Families cried and shouted. Chikatilo showed little regret. In 1994, he was executed with a single gunshot. Andrei Chikatilo became known as the Butcher of Rostov, a quiet man who hid a storm inside, a predator who walked among ordinary people, and for more than a decade, no one saw him coming. Albert Fish did not look like a threat. He was small, quiet, an older man with tired eyes. But behind that weak appearance was one of the most disturbing killers America had ever seen. Born in 1870 in Washington, D.C., Fish grew up in deep poverty. His father died when he was very young. His mother could not care for him and sent him to an orphanage. There, he later said, he was abused and beaten. Those early years left scars that never healed. As an adult, Fish moved from place to place. He worked odd jobs. He married and had 6 children. Neighbors described him as polite and religious, but he lived a secret life filled with violent thoughts. He believed pain was a path to spiritual meaning. He harmed himself, and eventually, he harmed children. In the 1920s, several children disappeared in New York. Fish often targeted poor families. He answered job ads. He gained parents' trust. He spoke gently and carried himself like a harmless old man. Then he would take the child away. One of the most tragic cases was 10-year-old Grace Budd in 1928. Fish visited her home pretending to offer her brother a job. At the last moment, he convinced the parents to let Grace go with him to a party. It was a lie. Grace was murdered, but the crime remained unsolved for years. In 1934, Grace's mother received a letter. It was from Fish. In cold detail, he described killing her daughter. The letter horrified the country. Police traced the letter to a boarding house. Albert Fish was arrested soon after. During questioning, he confessed to multiple murders. He claimed there were more victims. Some were never identified. His trial shocked the public. Doctors testified he was mentally ill, but the jury still found him responsible. In 1936, Albert Fish was executed in the electric chair. He became known as the Gray Man, quiet figure who blended into the background, a predator hiding behind age and politeness. His crimes were hard to understand, hard to forget, and his name remains one of the darkest in American history. Gilles de Rais was a French nobleman born in 1405. He grew up wealthy and powerful, and he fought alongside Joan of Arc during the 100 Years' War. Gilles was brave on the battlefield and won many honors. People saw him as a hero at first, but after the war, his life took a dark turn. He spent his fortune on castles, parties, and strange experiments. Soon, rumors began to spread about his private life. It was said that he kidnapped children and committed terrible crimes. People were horrified when the truth came out. He had murdered many young boys, and his actions shocked all of France. In 1440, Gilles de Rais was arrested. The trial was long and full of witnesses who described his cruel deeds. He tried to deny the crimes at first, but the evidence was overwhelming. Eventually, he was found guilty and sentenced to death. Gilles de Rais was hanged in October 1440, and his story became one of the most infamous tales in French history. Historians still debate why Gilles committed such horrors. Some say he was mentally ill, while others believe greed and desire for power played a role. Today, his story serves as a warning about how even someone who starts as a hero can become a monster when consumed by dark desires. H. Holmes looked like a success story, smart, calm, well-spoken, but behind that smooth voice was a man who built one of the darkest legends in American crime. He was born in 1861 as Herman Webster Mudgett. He later changed his name to H. H. Holmes. From a young age, he was known to be intelligent and distant. He studied medicine and learned how the human body worked. That knowledge would later turn deadly. Holmes was also a skilled liar. He used fake names. He tricked business partners. He staged scams and insurance fraud. In the late 1880s, he moved to Chicago. The city was booming. New buildings, new jobs, new people arriving every day. Holmes saw opportunity. He bought land and built a large building near the 1893 Chicago World's Fair. It was 3 stories tall, shops on the first floor, rooms above. But inside, it was strange. Hallways that led nowhere, staircases that ended at walls, rooms with hidden doors. Some bedrooms had gas pipes connected to them. Victims could be trapped, locked in, overpowered. In the basement, police later found a furnace, acid tanks, and surgical tools. Evidence that bodies were destroyed there. Many of Holmes' victims were young women. Some worked for him. Some trusted him. Some believed he would marry them. He promised jobs, security, love. Then they vanished. At the time, Chicago was crowded and chaotic. People moved often. Missing persons were not always investigated deeply. Holmes used that to his advantage, but greed caught up with him. In 1894, he tried to fake the death of a business partner for insurance money. The plan failed. Police began to look closer at his past. What they discovered was terrifying. Holmes confessed to 27 murders. Some believe the real number may have been much higher. His trial became national news. Reporters filled the courtroom. The public was shocked by the idea of a murder castle. Holmes showed little emotion. He seemed proud of his cleverness. In 1896, he was sentenced to death and hanged. The building was later damaged and eventually torn down. H. H. Holmes became one of America's first famous serial killers. A man who hid evil behind charm. A criminal who turned a building into a trap. And more than a century later, his story still sends chills down the spine. David Parker Ray did not look like a monster. He lived in a small town in New Mexico. He worked as a mechanic. He smiled at neighbors. He blended in. But inside a trailer on his property, he created something terrifying. Born in 1939, Ray had a troubled childhood. He was quiet and kept to himself. As he grew older, he developed violent fantasies. Instead of seeking help, he built a secret world around them. That world was a soundproof trailer he called his toy box. Inside were chains, handcuffs, whips, straps attached to walls and ceilings. There was even an audio tape he recorded. On it, he calmly explained to victims what he planned to do. His voice was steady, almost emotionless. Throughout the 1980s and 1990 seconds, Ray targeted vulnerable women. Some were struggling with addiction. Some were living on the streets. Some trusted him because he seemed kind. He offered rides, help, money. Then he drugged them. When the women woke up, they were trapped in the trailer, restrained, confused, terrified. Prosecutors later said he tortured victims for hours or even days. He sometimes worked with others, including his girlfriend. Abuse was recorded on video. Afterward, Ray would drug the victims again. Many were released far from where they were taken. Most had little or no memory of what happened. For years, he avoided arrest. In 1999, one victim managed to escape. Still wearing chains, she ran to a nearby house and begged for help. Police arrived and searched Ray's property. What they found shocked even experienced officers. The trailer was filled with disturbing equipment and tapes, but there were almost no bodies. No clear proof of murder. Investigators believe some victims may have been killed, but without physical evidence, murder charges were hard to prove. Ray was convicted of kidnapping and torture-related crimes. He received a long prison sentence. In 2002, before facing additional trials, David Parker Ray died of a heart attack in prison. To this day, the exact number of his victims is unknown. The case of the Toy Box Killer remains one of the most chilling in modern American crime, not because of confirmed body counts, but because of the planning, the control, the cold, recorded voice in the dark, a man who seemed ordinary, a trailer that hid horror, and victims who may never be fully counted. In the fall of 1888, fear ruled the streets. Gas lamps flickered, fog covered the roads, and a killer moved in the shadows of London. His name? No one truly knows. The world calls him Jack the Ripper. The murders took place in Whitechapel, a poor area in East London. Crowded buildings, dark alleys, desperate lives. Many women worked the streets to survive. They became easy targets. The first confirmed victim was found in August 1888. Her throat was cut. Her body was badly mutilated. Then it happened again and again. Within a few months, 5 women were killed in similar ways. Police believed the same person was responsible. The crimes were brutal, but also strangely precise. The killer seemed to know what he was doing. He struck late at night. He worked quickly. He disappeared before help could arrive. The case exploded in the newspapers. Reporters gave him a name after receiving letters signed Jack the Ripper. Some letters described the crimes in chilling detail. One even arrived with part of a human organ. The public panicked. Rumors spread across the city. Was he a doctor? A butcher? A foreigner? Even members of high society were accused. Police flooded the streets. They questioned hundreds of men. They followed countless leads, but there was no arrest, no clear suspect, no confession. Then, as suddenly as it started, the murder stopped. Did he die? Was he locked away for another crime? Or did he simply blend back into the crowd? More than 130 years later, the mystery still remains. Historians continue to debate the case. New suspects appear in books and documentaries. Modern science has tried to solve it, but nothing is certain. Jack the Ripper became more than a killer. He became a symbol of fear, a shadow in history, 5 known victims, endless questions, and a name that still echoes through time. He terrorized a city, he shocked the world, and he was never caught.